Thank you, Sir David. It's always a pleasure to see you in the chair, and I very much enjoyed and agreed with most, apart from his final paragraph, the Honourable Member for Strangford. But I have to say that's where the consensus ends in terms of this debate, and it is a debate. And I certainly was struck by a number of contributions which talked about illegal immigration, but not one person actually articulated what that actually means and their definition of illegal immigration. So let's, I think, move on to the facts rather than the rhetoric, Sir David. The facts are the number of people claiming asylum in 2020 substantially reduced this year, 40% drop according to the government's own statistics. It's the route that has changed. And because other routes are no longer available is why there are these crossings. It's not illegal, Sir David, to enter the UK for the purposes of making an asylum claim. The most recent evidence set out by the Home Office's clandestine Channel Threat Commander suggests that 100% of people crossing the English Channel in small boats are doing so to claim asylum. That's clear evidence that was given by the Commander to the Home Affairs Select Committee. That is to seek international protection. None are trying to enter the country unobserved or for criminal reasons. That's the evidence that was presented. And as I've said earlier, there's been a 40% drop on the immigration statistics published in August this year, and that compares the last quarter from 2019. I'll give way to the Honourable Gentleman.
I thank the Honourable Member for giving way. I accept his argument that the route has indeed changed, but would he not see that the route is now much more unsafe? You know, any other route that an asylum claim can be made is intrinsically more safe than going out to sea in a dinghy that's not meant for the amount of people that it's carrying.
Well, I thank him for that intervention, as I'll come on to later on. The UK Government has a responsibility to provide safe legal routes for people claiming asylum, and I'm going to come on to some of that later on in my contribution. Now, what is the legal position for people seeking asylum in the UK excuse me, after arising from France? For those arriving in the UK and make a claim for asylum are subject to international refugee law, Sir David, in terms of that right, and it's not affected by their mode of arrival or means of entry. The UK is a signatory to the 1951 Convention relating to the status of refugees and the 1967 Protocol. And how does the legal system intervene to help people being removed? I was staggered to hear, Sir David, that the legal profession in the UK has been overrun by these Trotskyite and Marxist lawyers who are stopping people from being deported. What absolute, utter nonsense, and is certainly just not the case. And I want to just explain, Sir David, for those watching this debate, what the legal system actually is that stops people being removed. Because the claim that sometimes the legal system unfairly prevents people from being removed is actually a nonsense. In fact, it misrepresents how asylum and human rights law functions and its purpose. As set out, there are established processes for the removal of people in certain circumstances where their asylum has been fully heard by the UK or should be held elsewhere. I have no problem with that. I have seen individuals come to my office who have had to be deported because they've went through the system. Some of it criminal activity. Have no problem with that at all. But removals are stopped for a wide range of reasons, such as health grounds, due to trafficking concerns, and appeals protecting the rights of individuals. And where those removals are halted is because the Home Office and the Home Secretary are not adhering to the law. Removals cannot be prevented by lawyers themselves, as we've heard in some of this debate that it's the lawyers who are stopping deportations. Nonsense. The legal assistance provided to ensure that the law is upheld, and if necessary by a court of law determines whether a removal is stopped or not. And such processes have to be undertaken quickly, as applicants will not usually be given much notice of removal proceedings. That is a fact, and I can say to you, Sir David, in terms of the constituency case, what I've got with Glasgow being one of the only, I would say, in Glasgow that takes on, the only one in Scotland that takes on asylum seekers. I'll give way now. Thank you.
I thank the Honourable Gentleman for giving way. Now, you mentioned that Glasgow takes on asylum seekers. And you'll be fully aware, a few years ago, one of my co-religionists was murdered by somebody of Pakistani origin in his shop for being simply an Ahmadi Muslim who wished his Christian neighbours, I believe it was, a happy Easter. Now, as somebody who knows asylum particularly well, I also know the abuses of the system and people who really generally do need safe avenues for asylum. So I can tell you quite categorically, you can apply for asylum in this country through legal mechanisms. The Ahmadi community, for example, has since the 80s banned and refused and with discipline told nobody can come to this country or any other country who is an Ahmadi by illegal measures at all. And that's why we have no... Sorry.
If that was an intervention, I have to say to the honourable member, it was quite a long intervention, and there didn't seem to be a question to it. So could the honourable member just come to his point, please?
Do you not agree? Evidence will dictates that people abuse the asylum system, and do we not want people here to live and work amongst us and become part of the fabric and silver and golden friends of the national tapestry who obey the rules? It's one of the characteristics of our country. And if we're allowing people coming in whose very get-go is breaking the rules, are they going to fit?
Yes, well, I thank the honourable gentleman for his second speech, Sir David. But can I say to him, can I say to him, and I'll be quick, Sir David, for time purposes, is that certainly there is a great Ahmadi community in Glasgow, of which we're very proud. All I can say to him, and it's just based on my experience of dealing with asylum claims, is that asylum claim abuses are few and far between compared to those seeking genuine asylum. And I would want to see the government, touching on the point that the honourable gentleman made, I would want to see asylum seekers now being given the right, after a certain point, to have the right to work, so that they are embedded in the community, as the honourable gentleman suggests. I think that that's something that must be looked at. My honourable friend for Glasgow North has a private member's bill on this, Sir David, and I think that there has to be a serious discussion about allowing asylum seekers the right to work. I'm proud to have an office manager who is a refugee, whose family, who had family members murdered by Saddam Hussein's regime, who came to this country. Her father was working. And far from this rhetoric that we heard about the Labour Party being left-wing, it was the Labour Party who actually took my office manager's father's national insurance off him, because they then changed the law, the then Labour government changed the law to stop asylum seekers having the right to work. And I hope the honourable gentleman will seriously consider that Prime Minister's bill and consider that asylum seekers should, after a certain period, should have the right to work, so that they can make the contribution that he wants asylum seekers to make. Now, Sir David, I have to say the Home Office's response to the recent Channel crossings displays, in our view, as a party, a complete disregard for human suffering that is both shocking and shameful. By responding to these crossings in a dystopian, quasi-militaristic way, with surveillance technology, appointing a clandestine Channel threat commander, and positing the idea of bringing in the Royal Navy, something later condemned by the UN's Refugee Agency and the International Organisation for Migration, only reinforces the headlines which likens this failure of leadership to an invasion. Contrary to the Department's remarks, the reality is far from being the crisis the newspapers suggest it is. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, the representative in the UK, has said recently that the UK, far from the epicentre of the real challenge, are far from the epicentre of the real challenge. And asylum claims in the UK have, as I've said, and I say it once again, have fallen in 2020. And that was confirmed by Abby Tierney, the Director General of UK Visas and Immigration at the Home Affairs Select Committee in September this year. The response to this petition describes Channel crossings as unacceptable behaviour. What the Department seemed to be unable to understand, or is perhaps failing to mention, is that it's already closed and is closing more safe legal routes for refugees to reach the United Kingdom. This is leaving extremely vulnerable individuals who are often fleeing unimaginable conditions, as the Honourable Member for Strangford rightly pointed out, with little choice but to place the fate in the hands of criminal gangs. A report last year by the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, of which the Home Secretary was a member at that time, said, in the absence of robust and accessible legal routes for seeking asylum in the UK, those with a claim are left with little choice but to make dangerous journeys by land and sea. Now, the Minister, I assume, Sir David, the Minister is seeking to make an intervention because there was a lot of noise there as I was making those remarks, but I'm happy to give way to him.
Well, I'm very grateful to the Honourable Member for giving way. He said that migrants are compelled to cross the English Channel in order to claim asylum. I would respectfully point out they are in France, typically northern France. France is a civilised and safe country with a well-functioning asylum system, and should anyone in northern France feel they need to claim asylum, they are perfectly able to do so there. They don't need to make one of these dangerous crossings.
Well, that may very well be the Minister's view, and he's going to have, obviously, an opportunity to say that, and I'll perhaps make an intervention. Well, the Minister that seems to be harumphing in a sedentary position, Sir David, I'm rather concerned for his welfare. He seems rather excitable, Sir David. Perhaps you can pass him a note and have a word, just to calm him down. Thank you, Sir David. So, the staggering leaked UK government documents only prove the Tory hostile environment towards immigration and immigrants is still alive and kicking. In response to the petition, I quote the Home Office state that the UK has long been a sanctuary for those in need of international protection. Leaked documents provided evidence that the Home Office was considering wave machines to deter boats, nets to clog boats' propellers, and the transportation of asylum seekers over 4,000 miles away to Ascension Island for processing. These are preposterous suggestions, and it shows how far that the government will go to drive home and engender the Brexit ideology that has already poisoned some of the political discourse in this country. The Refugees Policy Manager, Judith Dennis, said that the UK must treat refugees and asylum seekers with dignity. But instead, these ridiculous proposals set an unsettling precedent, firing the starting gun of a race to the bottom in terms of treating refugees and asylum seekers with any humanity and compassion. Now, Sir David, I do believe that the asylum system must be fair, it must be compassionate, but it also must be professional. And I hope that the Minister is going to answer the question that I've been trying to seek debates on. I unfortunately seem to be missing out in the ballots for either Westminster Hall or on the adjournment debate, Sir David. I hope the Minister will answer today why a private company has been called in to process asylum claim interviews in the last couple of weeks. Done it in secret, Sir David. No statement, either written or verbal, provided to honourable members of this House that a private company has been called in by the Home Office to carry out asylum claim interviews. Is it Serco? Well, it wouldn't surprise us, let's be honest, Sir David. If it is a company like Serco, they've certainly been the name that's been mentioned as a company that's carrying out these asylum claim interviews. What training do they have to carry out these asylum claim interviews? What expertise do they have, Sir David, to carry out these asylum claim interviews? It really is, I would suggest, quite ludicrous that for a quasi-legal process, at the very least, that as asylum claim interviews would be, that a private company, be it Serco or someone else, is being asked to carry out this under the aegis, Sir David, of a pilot programme to carry out these asylum claim interviews. I hope the Minister will perhaps, in his remarks, address the concerns that I and many members of this House have in relation to that particular issue. Now, in closing, Sir David, because I am conscious of time and I want to allow the two other front benches to speak, we keep being told that the asylum system is broken, and yet this government's had 10 years, over a decade. Does that suggest, and does it mean to say that they've broken the system, and what are they going to do to fix it? So, David, I respectfully disagree with those who have put forward and signed up to this petition, and respectfully disagree with most of the remarks I've heard, with all due respect to them, with honourable members and right honourable members today.